to punish that man's village. Then the village would take care to send a good man.
So it was.
But, lest our work should be too easy, the King had done such a dread justice over at Salehurst for the killing of the Kentish knight, 26 men he hanged, as I heard, that our folk were half mad with fear before we began. It is easier to dig out a badger gone to earth than a Saxon gone dumb sullen. On top of their misery the old rumour waked that Harold the Saxon was alive and would bring them deliverance from us Normans. This has happened every autumn since Santlache fight.
"But King Harold was killed at Hastings," said Una.
So it was said, and so it was believed by us Normans, but our Saxons always believed he would come again. That rumour did not make our work any more easy. Sir Richard strode on down the far slope of the wood, where the trees thin out. It was fascinating to watch how he managed his long spurs among the lumps of blackened ling.
"But we did it," he said. "After all, a woman is as good as a man to beat the woods, and the mere word that deer are afoot makes cripples and crones young again." De Aquila laughed when Hugh told him over the list of the beaters. Half were women, and many of the rest were clerks, Saxon and Norman priests. Hugh and I had not time to laugh for 8 days, till De Aquila, as Lord of Pevensey, met our King and led him to the first shooting stand, by the mill on the edge of the forest. Hugh and I—it was no work for hot heads or heavy hands—lay with our beaters on the skirts of Dallington to watch both them and the deer. When De Aquila's great horn blew, we went forward, a line half a league long. Oh, to see the fat clerks, their gowns tucked up, puffing and roaring, and the sober millers dusting the undergrowth with their staves, and, like as not, between them a Saxon wench, hand in hand with her man, shrilling like a kite as she ran, and leaping high through the fern, all for joy of the sport.
"Ah how! Ah how! Hawa! Sa hawa!"
Puck bellowed without warning, and Swallow bounded forward, ears cocked and nostrils cracking.
"Ha la 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 hi ah la!"
Sir Richard answered in a high, clear shout. The two voices joined in swooping circles of sound, and a heron rose out of a red osier bed below them, circling as though he kept time to the outcry. Swallow quivered and swished his glorious tail. They stopped together on the same note. A hoarse shout answered them across the bare woods.
"That's old Hobden," said Una.
"Small blame to him. It's in his blood," said Puck. "Did your beaters cry so, Sir Richard?"
"My faith, they forgot all else. Steady, Swallow, steady."
They forgot where the King and his people waited to shoot. They followed the deer to the very edge of the open till the first flight of wild arrows from the stands flew fair over them. I cried, "Where's shot? Where's shot?" and a knot of young knights new from Normandy, that had strayed away from the grand stand, turned about, and in mere sport loosed off at our line, shouting, "Where's Santlache arrows? Where's Santlache arrows?" A jest, I grant you, but too sharp. One of our beaters answered in Saxon, "Where New Forest arrows? Where Red William's arrow?" So I judged it time to end the jests, and when the boys saw my old mail gown, for to shoot with strangers I count the same as war, they ceased shooting. So that was smoothed over, and we gave our beaters ale to wash down their anger. They were excusable. They had sweated to show our guests good sport, and our reward was a flight of hunting arrows which no man loves, and worse, a churl's jibe over hard-fought, fair-lost Hastings fight. So, before the next beat, Hugh and I assembled and called the beaters over by name to steady them. The greater part we knew, but among the Netherfield men I saw an old man in the dress of a pilgrim. The clerk of Netherfield said he was well known by repute for 20 years as a witless man that journeyed without rest to all the shrines of England. The old man sits Saxon fashion, head between fists, We Normans rest the chin on the left palm." "Who answers for him?" said I. "If he fails in his duty, who will pay his fine?" "Who will pay my fine?" the pilgrim said. "I have asked that of all the saints in England these 40 years, less 3 months and 9 days. They have not answered." When he lifted his thin face, I saw he was one-eyed, and frail as a rush. "Nay, but, Father," I said, "to whom hast thou commended thyself?" He shook his head, so I spoke in Saxon. "Whose man art thou?" "I think I have a writing from Rahere, the King's jester," said he after a while. "I am, as I suppose, Rahere's man." He pulled a writing from his scrip, and Hugh, coming up, read it. It set out that the pilgrim was Rahere's man, and that Rahere was the King's jester. There was Latin writ at the back. "What a plague conjuration's here!" said Hugh, turning it over. "Pom quum sum oc. Magic?" "Black magic," said the clerk of Netherfield. He had been a monk at Battle. "They say Rahere is more of a priest than a fool, and more of a wizard than either. Here's Rahere's name writ, and there's Rahere's red coxcomb mark drawn below for such as cannot read." He looked slyly at me. "Then read it," said I, "and show thy learning." He was a vain little man, and he gave it us after much mouthing. The charm, which I think is from Virgilius the sorcerer, says, "When thou art once dead, and Minos, which is a heathen judge, has doomed thee, neither cunning, nor speechcraft, nor good works will restore thee." A terrible thing, it denies any mercy to a man's soul. "Does it serve?" said the pilgrim, plucking at Hugh's cloak. "O man of the King's blood, does it cover me?" Hugh was of Earl Godwin's blood, and all Sussex knew it, though no Saxon dared call him kingly in a Norman's hearing. There can be but one king. "It serves," said Hugh, "but the day will be long and hot. Better rest here. We go forward now." "No, I will keep with thee, my kinsman," he answered like a child. He was indeed childish through great age. The line had not moved a bowshot when De Aquila's great horn blew for a halt, and soon young Fulk, our false Fulk's son, yes, the imp that lit the straw in Pevensey Castle (see Old Men of Pevensey and Puck of Pook's Hill), came thundering up a woodway. "Uncle," said he, though he was a man grown, he called me uncle, "those young Norman fools who shot at you this morn are saying that your beaters cried treason against the King. It has come to Harry's long ears, and he bids you give account of it. There are heavy fines in his eye, but I am with you to the hilt, uncle." When the boy had fled back, Hugh said to me, "It was Rahere's witless man that cried, 'Ware Red William's arrow.' I heard him, and so did the clerk of Netherfield." "Then Rahere must answer to the King for his man," said I. "Keep him by you till I send," and I hastened down. The King was with De Aquila in the grand stand above Wellinsford down in the valley yonder. His court, knights and dames, lay glittering on the edge of the glade. I made my homage, and Henry took it coldly. "How came your beaters to shout threats against me?" said he. "The tale has grown," I answered. "One old witless man cried out, 'Ware Red William's arrow,' when the young knights shot at our line. We had 2 beaters hit." "I will do justice on that man," he answered. "Who is his master?" "He's Rahere's man," said I. "Rahere's?" said Henry. "Has my fool a fool?" I heard the bells jingle at the back of the stand, and a red leg waved over it, then a black one. So, very slowly, Rahere the King's jester straddled the edge of the planks and looked down on us, rubbing his chin. Loose knit, with cropped hair and a sad priest's face, under his coxcomb cap, that he could twist like a strip of wet leather. His eyes were hollow set. "Nay, nay, brother," said he, "if I suffer you to keep your fool, You must e'en suffer me to keep